All right, let's get into Saints and the Vikings. As Alan had just noticed. Question: what's with the Viking thing? Is it just like anyone but the Saints?
Oh, well, the Vikings are my second team.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother was a huge fan growing up, although he's kind of scarred now. Ever since far through that pick, he kind of gave up on football. He'll occasionally watch, like he did watch the Minneapolis.
Wow, rematch also. I
yeah,
forgot about
that.
that.
A lot of history.
Holy shit. A lot of crazy endings to games.
You got the Favre pick. You got Diggs. It's one of the best play-by-play guys in the, I think, just sports period is Paul Allen from Minnesota. He's the guy who coined the Minneapolis Miracle phrase. If you want to look up another thing on YouTube, just look up Paul Allen's reaction to Brett Favre's interception. He goes, "This isn't Detroit. This is the NFC Championship. The Vikings are trying to go to the Super Bowl." He's just freaking out as Favre threw the interception. And of course, it's just Brett Favre throwing across his body. So yeah, this game has a lot of history to it. And I think it's always been a fun matchup, but the fact that it's in New Orleans now just brings back memories. And when you think about it, it's actually, 10 years because it was the 2009 season, but 2010 playoffs this year, 19 going to 20. Now this is in the conference championships, and Minnesota isn't quite the same. But, yeah, this is a fun matchup. But, no, I do genuinely like the Vikings. I grew up loving Culpepper and Moss. My first ever football jersey was Randy Moss. Then it was Jamal Anderson, former running back.
Let's go.
Dirty Bird. But Randy Moss is like my all-time favorite player. So, yeah, I do have a soft spot for Minnesota, although I think this is the most lopsided game out of the four.
Question. Do you remember Brett Favre's last throw as a Packer?
Was that to Corey Webster?
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Brett Favre.
How you like I know the player too.
In typical Brett Favre fashion, his last pass attempt as a Packer intercepted. Man. Shout out to Corey Webster. All right. You think the most lopsided game of the weekend?
Yeah.
So you're thinking.
You know I've been high on the Saints all year.
Right.
Yeah.
So this might be the most important question to ask you. The Saints are an 8-point favorite. You saying that you're confident you think they blow them out? Like what kind of vibes are you getting from this game?
I think the issue with the Vikings, everyone's going to point out, okay, Kirk Cousins on the road, high-profile matchup, he's going to crack. I think the biggest issue with the Vikings, the secondary is just not good anymore. Like Xavier Rose, we've been talking about his decline. Trey Wayne's always been an issue. Even I don't even think Harrison is playing at the same level. And it's just right now, we've been kind of talking. Oh, last year was the case, but not so much this year. Drew Brees is playing really well. Like, I thought he looked incredible against Tennessee. All right, he did his thing against Carolina, but Drew Brees, the decline hasn't been there this year.
I want to take this time to apologize on.
I probably got to apologize too.
An all-time bad take saying the Saints are going to make the playoffs.
Oh, I didn't say that.
and also by saying that, I felt like Drew Brees was a shot fighter because. Dude, not for nothing. This time last year, he did look a little shaky.
No, he did. After that, absolutely.
Fuck, who did they play on Thursday Night Football?
Well, I know they played the Falcons on Thanksgiving. That was kind of
there was another one, and then they played someone else.
Dallas,
yes.
Yeah, he
Dallas,
did look bad.
They were like an 8-point favorite in Dallas. I remember I gave out the Cowboys. Shout out to me, but he looked so bad. And then after that, like his numbers kind of declined.
There was a Monday night game against Carolina. They barely beat a bad Carolina team.
Yeah. So. And then he just looked shaky, like his arm strength wasn't there. He's 40 years old also. So I thought that was going to be a big part of it. But then, something very important. He missed about 6 weeks of the season, came back, and, dude, he's been on fire the last 7 weeks.
He's been really impressive. That Monday night game against the Colts, he was just, wherever the ball went, it just landed in the hands, whether it was Michael Thomas or Jared Cook. I think having a playmaking tight end again has really helped them. Like Drew Brees, kind of like Tom Brady. Like I wonder if the Patriots wish they could have got Jared Cook. Because, okay, Jared Cook, shaky hands, could be a little frustrated, but that guy's a freak athlete, and he's going to make plays, especially after a catch. I think signing Jared Cook, you put him with Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn still threat. Traquan Smith's getting the ball a lot more now, too. It's just that offense is looking threatening. And Kamara's helping.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for me, it's he's definitely finally healthy. These last 2 weeks, he's scored multiple touchdowns. And, in the fantasy community, you always have, like, touchdown regression. Like, I think a guy next year to just be cautious about a little bit is, like, Aaron Jones, right? Like, this dude scored, 18 touchdowns? I think he led the NFL in touchdowns. It's like him and McCaffrey.
Yeah, Henry had, 16.
Right. It's like you can't bank on these guys to score 20 touchdowns a year.
Kind of like Tyler Lockett last year.
Right. Tyler Lockett last year had 10 touchdowns. And
I think 14 or something.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah.
Darius Slayton this year, he scored 8 touchdowns. It's like, you're not going to get, that's just, Even Julio, dude. Like Julio, year in year out, he's like a top wide receiver in the game. But his touchdowns are always up in the air. So it's just something that you can't bank on. Eric Ebron last year led the league in
my
touchdowns.
God, Eric Ebron.
Yeah. So here's something very interesting. Eric Kendricks, according to PFF, a lot of analysts have picked him for Defensive Player of the Year. He's questionable. Highest grade of any Minnesota Vikings defensive player. And you mentioned the defense. Secondary shaken up. Are you familiar with their schedule?
I'm looking at it right now, and wow, there are quite a lot of below average / quarterbacks that shouldn't be in the league on this list.
Chase Daniel, Sir Daniel Jones, Case Keenum, Matt Moore, Kyle Allen, David Blow, Mitchell Trubisky. And they don't have a single corner that grades over 50.
And the big concern is, okay, everyone's going to bring up their pass rush. Danielle Hunter is a stud. Everson Griffin still get the job done. New Orleans offensive line still one of the top units in the league. They do not allow a lot of pressure. Ramczyk and Armstead, as good as it gets when it comes to tackles. That's where, like, okay, maybe the Vikings will blitz a lot more, but the Saints are one of the best screen teams in the game. Like, they know how to put together screens, whether it's through Kamara or if they go to outside with Thomas or Smith. If the Vikings can't generate pressure, I just think Drew Brees is going to torch them. And then offensively, that offense line is very shaky. And even though New Orleans, okay, they lost Rankins and Davenport, but still Cam Jordan's is lethal as I guess. That guy, you could put him across the line of scrimmage, he's going to cause problems. I just think there's so many matchups that favor New Orleans. The only way I can see Minnesota doing well is just if Dalvin Cook goes off and they dominate the time possession. I think this is the type of game that it's like, okay, if you could control the ball, if you got to quote-unquote establish the run, which, Mike Zimmer being as old school as he is, he'll do it. They just have to force some turnovers and run the ball effectively. Otherwise, I just don't see how they could contain that New Orleans offense.
Yeah, Adam Thielen don't look himself. I think
I'm excited to watch Diggs though.
Right. Oh man, I could definitely see them like completely trying to put the clamps on him and like, yo, you're not gonna get shit.
I wonder how much Janoris Jenkins is gonna play.
Dude, what about the starting secondary for the New York Giants this year, week 1, is playing in this game.
You have him with Lattimore. It's just the thing is, I'm not sure how much they're gonna see field because Minnesota. I'm not sure what the exact stat is, but they do not play with a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Mm-hmm. They're notorious for running 2 tight sets with Rudolph and Irv Smith. They're just very old school, and they just don't have the depth to have those 2 receivers. So maybe it won't matter as much, but it's just I think New Orleans is firing all cylinders right now. They are such an explosive team, and even though defensively they're a little shaky, it's just Drew Brees, just the way he's playing right now with Michael Thomas. Like there isn't a better rapport right now in the league. Like those 2 are just completely in sync, and Minnesota. Like it would be shocking Michael Thomas doesn't have like 125 yards out of this game.
Do you think in the NFC more so than the AFC, home field really matters in this playoffs? Because, man, I feel like New Orleans might not get to the Super Bowl because they won't have home field. Like looking ahead, if they win this game on Sunday, which it's fair to say we both think so, they're going to go into Green Bay. And if it's like 4 degrees in Green Bay, and, the home road splits are well documented between Drew Brees, like indoors and outdoors.
I think also their defense. For some reason, their defense does not play as good on the road.
But also, I need to push back on everyone that has that take because it's not true since they got Michael Thomas. Oh, okay. Since Michael Thomas got there, Drew Brees is a completely different quarterback on the road. Like, he's not what he is in the dome, but he's not as bad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's having a guy like Michael Thomas who does a lot of the dirty work underneath. And that could be Kamara, too. I want to show him some love. But I think it's very important to remember that. I know in 2 instances we're looking ahead, but man, I think the Saints win.
Yeah.
35-14, 35. I'm expecting a blowout.
We'll see some good old Kirk Cousins garbage time points. No quarterback does garbage time better than Kirk Cousins. Oh, maybe Blake Bortles back in the day, but
that's the reason why I'm a little worried about this 8-point spread because it could be like, it could be 28-14 and there's like 2 minutes left and Cousins does his usual shit,
I'm excited to see Dalvin Cook. He's been out for the last almost 3 weeks now,
mm-hmm.
and he's still someone that could take over a game. I think that's the one thing. If Minnesota could just somehow get him the ball at least 20 times and just somehow control the time possession, if Cousins just doesn't shoot himself in the foot, it could be competitive.
If you're Minnesota, you want to completely duplicate that Sunday Night Football game against the Cowboys, right? Cook had 28 touches, I believe it was.
Right.
It was one of his best games, and also Cousins had the 2 touchdowns to Kyle Rudolph, and it was like I think he threw the ball maybe 20 times, and it's like that's exactly what we want from the Vikings. Like I want Cook to get the ball 25 plus times.
And Gary Kubiak and Zimmer want that too.
Yeah, and just have Kirk Cousins not F this up for us. That's exactly what I think. But I don't think that's going to happen because I think it's going to get ugly in the Superdome.
Going Saints.
All right, last but not least, Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, and we're going to talk a little bit about this game in particular with our guy Danny Kelly, who Seahawks fan, and he lives out in the Pacific Northwest. But man, I said this prior to knowing who was going to win that game. I think the Eagles win.
This is going to be a slop fest. I hope you're ready for a big, ugly slop fest. Entertaining.
Yeah. So they played each other in the regular season. Both defenses are bad. Both quarterbacks are doing a lot with a little. And I know Tyler Lockett, got to give him some love. But DK Metcalf also. The first time these two teams played, and I just found this now, we didn't mention it before with Danny Kelly. Dude, you know how many turnovers the Eagles had?
I remember they had a lot of fumbles.
5.
Wow.
3 fumbles and 2
Wentz had an ugly stretch. I remember that Patriots game. He was awful. I think this game.
That was the famous play where Miles Sanders is wide open in the flats, like 3 yards from him.
He just air mailed.
Yo, that ball landed like past the sideline out of bounds, like that white chalk. It landed like past that, and Miles Sanders was so wide open. It was one of those plays where like Miles Sanders kind of looked at him. He's like, dude, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. He's hurt. I'm not sure if he's playing.
Yeah, Jordan Howard is supposed to come back, which I think might be interesting because like this is the kind of game where you might want to pound Jordan Howard.
You could run Seattle.
Right. Yeah. And the secondary for Phillies, they were playing well, and then like Jalen Mills got hurt, Darby IR, LeBlanc is like the slot corner now. Tyler Lockett should have a field day.
I think they've been very fortunate these last 2 weeks. Talking about Philly's secondary, Prescott missed a lot of throws in that game. Like he could have hit Gallup at least twice. I think he underthrew him, then he overthrew him, and then he also missed Tavon Austin on a big one. And then last week, I thought Daniel Jones underthrew Sterling Shepard a couple of times.
Yep.
Like
I'm glad you brought that up.
I thought the Eagles secondary, like whether it was LeBlanc or Sidney Jones, they were very fortunate they didn't get torched. And now you're going up against Russell Wilson. It's like, I don't think you can get bailed out this time around.
Right. And also, this game is at 4:40 as opposed to being a 1 o'clock, so you don't have that body clock thing for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I will say Philadelphia is a very intimidating place. I was there, Eagles-Falcons 2018, and just those fans do not sit down. I was in the press box just looking around like, this is a really intimidating place. And Eagles, they still have their front four, and Jim Schwartz will blitz as much as possible.
And no Dwayne Brown for the Seahawks.
No, you have George Fant, former basketball player, play left tackle.
So I think this is the biggest of all the quarterbacks this weekend. I think Carson Wentz has the most pressure on him.
Yeah, actually,
he hasn't won a playoff game for them. And he's been...
I think there's a little pressure on Kirk Cousins. I know they're kind of in a lopsided matchup, but I feel like Cousins has to at least do something.
Sure.
And maybe Breeze too. Like, dude, they can't. This might be the last hurrah. So no, but I do think Carson Wentz, just because he hasn't been there.
The jury is still out on Carson Wentz, which I think is fucking ridiculous.
That's harsh.
If you don't see it with Carson Wentz, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't think the jury's thought. They just want to see him do on the biggest stage.
This guy, the most underrated storyline of this year is how well he's played. I know he had the bad stretch, like we mentioned, the Seahawks game
quarterbacks do,
and the Patriots. But, dude, this guy's been balling the last 4 or 5 games since the Miami loss. And even that game, they didn't lose because of him.
No.
Right? And this dude's been balling. And look what he's doing it with. Practice squad guys, backups.
Greg Ward was undrafted, right?
He's the first, not even undrafted, bro. He was a college quarterback.
Oh, wow.
He was a quarterback for Houston.
Yeah.
This was a team I used to hammer the overs in. First time in NFL history that a quarterback throws for 4,000 yards. I know. Not one wide receiver over 500 yards.
That's impressive.
Not one. Dude, he's doing it with tight ends, backup tight ends.
Quick little thing. Josh Perkins was the 3rd tight end on the Falcons Super Bowl team back in 2016. I think he had 3 catches the whole year. So seeing Josh Perkins out there is very interesting, just because he was a pretty good athlete coming out of Washington, but it's just he's faded out of the league so much, but now he's back, and with that offense with Ertz, who might not play, and then Goddard, who made some incredible catches against the Giants. Oh my God, you could tell him and Wentz have a really strong rapport. So Yeah, that's at least one big positive. But Philly's also banged up the offense line. Brandon Brooks got stretchered off. Lane Johnson's been injured. These teams are just beat up, but Philly in particular is just, there's so many. They're just limping into the postseason. But it's just the way Wentz is playing and just that home field. I do think that home field is going to play a big factor. I think those are some of the big driving forces. And, of course, their pass rush. They really got after Giants, which I know are not saying a lot, but still, like, Seattle's offensive line is as shaky as it gets. And, Wilson, he could take some chances, and it doesn't always come to fruition. So maybe you could see Philly capitalize on it.
I do think you're right on this being a tough place to play. Like, the vibe, I always hate when the Giants got to go into Philly. Like, it's just like, yo, this shit's going to get ugly one way or another. It might either be an ugly performance by the Giants or it's an ugly game. And it's just a tough place to play, man. And they're eating up that shit like, yo, they're an underdog. They're a 2-point.
The fan base is still fully committed. It's not like a fan base where it's like, oh, we know we're not really going to make there's just not enough talent. For them, it's just like, oh, we're taking on the world.
Yeah. So I think I'm going with Philly, man. I think Wentz is playing at a super high level right now, and he's going to pull shit out his ass like he's been doing. I wish Ertz was playing, but, looking ahead a little bit, there's a possibility they might be able to get Aguilar and Deshaun Jackson back next week.
Deshaun Jackson doing drills. Very exciting.
So that'll be huge for them because they have no one they could take the top off the defense. So I'm going with the Eagles, and I'm very excited for this game. Despite it getting ugly, I think this one has the most
it's gonna get ridiculous. First of all, every Seahawks game pretty much gets ridiculous when you think about it.
And then because I think from a storyline perspective, because look, I think ultimately it's going to be Green Bay, New Orleans next week, right? So you might have Philly going to play San Francisco, or you might have Seattle, San Francisco round 3.
And the first 2 games were phenomenal.
Which for me, that's I think you tweeted out how that rivalry's back.
Oh yeah, that rivalry is
100%
back.
It was so fun, man. I think that's the rivalry of the 2010s.
Oh yeah, just based on especially early, pretty much I would say from 2012 to 14. Yeah. And once Kaepernick and Harbaugh started slipping.
But even so, there was some CJ Beathard
intense.
games where it came down to the wire and whatnot, and then it got good again. So yeah, I'm excited for it. But I'm going with the Eagles. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Seattle. I think just Philly's secondary is a major concern, and Wilson will capitalize on it. I think this could be a huge game for Tyler Lockett. They're using Lockett a lot more in a slot now, which made a big difference against San Fran. I think they're going to continue doing that. I know just from our interview with Danny Kelly, he was talking about the concern of just not letting Russ loose, dealing with Brian Schottenheimer. But I think at some point they're going to realize, okay, first of all, you can't run on Philly. Philly is one of the best run defense in the league. So at some point it's okay, just give Russ the ball and let him do the thing. And I would assume they learned from their mistakes from last year after just how abysmal they were against Dallas, especially just the conservatism. If you're going to beat Philly, go at their corners, and they have the receivers to do so. So I'm going to believe in them with that, and I think their defense could make some timely plays. I think KJ Wright's starting to play some of his best football, which he's been a little bit injured prone the past few years, and I really like Shaquille Griffin, who's healthy now. So between that, I'm not sure about Clowney status, but I think Seattle will make enough plays to win an entertaining slop fest. That's what I'm coining this to be. So yeah, I think out of all the 4 games, this one is the most unpredictable. This one, I just be like, oh, anything could really happen.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, I feel you on that. A part of me wants Seattle to win just so I can see that matchup against San Fran. Seattle is so good, man. Mm-hmm.
Plus, I feel like Philly could get destroyed by San Fran.
Oh, it could get ugly.
Yeah. Well, Seattle just somehow pulls out because Russ.
Yeah. Russ is going to keep you in games, man. I think Russ has only lost by double digits, I think 3 times in his career.
I know Falcons, that 2016 year, they blew him out.
Right.
So that was one. And that Carolina game in 2015, they came back in that. I don't know what the final score was, but remember, they
were down 27-0, and they did come back, but then ultimately
So maybe those are some of the losses.